The doll in the diner. My name is Mia, and I work the graveyard shift at a 24/7 diner off a lonely stretch of Route 66 in New Mexico. It's one of those places time forgot, with faded red boots, a jukebox that only plays Elvis, and a neon sign that buzzes louder than the customers talk. The diner's open all night for truckers, drifters, and the occasional lost tourist. But it's mostly empty after midnight, just me and the hum of the fluorescent lights. I took the job to save up for college, figuring a few months of pouring coffee and scrubbing counters wouldn't kill me. But after what happened last week, I'm not so sure. It started on a quiet Wednesday around 1 a.m. The desert outside was pitch black, the kind of dark that swallows everything beyond the diner's windows. I was wiping down the counter when a long-haul trucker named Carl came in, looking more rattled than usual. He's a big guy, all tattoos and beard, not the type to spook easy. But his hands were shaking as he slid into a booth, muttering about a weird vibe on the road. I poured him his usual black coffee and asked what was wrong. "Found something out there?" he said, his voice low, eyes darting to the window. "In the ditch, maybe a mile back. A doll. Creepiest damn thing I ever saw." I laughed it off, thinking he was pulling my leg. Truckers tell tall tales to pass the time, and I had heard my share of ghost stories. But Carl wasn't smiling. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small cloth doll, no bigger than a soda can. Its face was stitched with black thread, eyes uneven, mouth a crooked slash. The fabric was stained, like it'd been dragged through mud, and it smelled faintly of something sour, like old milk. He set it on the counter, and I swear the air got colder. "Take it," he said, pushing it toward me. "I don't want it in my truck." I didn't want it either, but Carl was spooked, and I didn't feel like arguing. I stuffed the doll in a plastic bag and tossed it in the storage room, figuring I'd deal with it later. Carl left at 20 and bolted, not even touching his coffee. I watched his taillights disappear into the night, a knot forming in my stomach. That night, the diner felt different. The jukebox kept cutting out, spitting static instead of music. The lights flickered, casting shadows that seemed to move when I wasn't looking. Around 3 a.m., I heard a faint giggle, high-pitched and sharp, coming from the storage room. I froze, my rag dripping soapy water onto the counter. The diner was empty. No customers, no cars in the lot. Just me and that sound, echoing in my head like a bad dream. I checked the storage room, my heart pounding. The bag was still there, untouched, but the giggle came again louder, like it was right behind me. I spun around, expecting to see someone, but the room was empty, just boxes of napkins and canned goods. I slammed the door and locked it, telling myself it was just the pipes or my imagination. My mom had borderline personality disorder, and she used to hear things, see things that weren't there. Was that happening to me? I pushed the thought away, but it clung like damp rot. The next night, I noticed the doll wasn't in the bag anymore. I tore the storage room apart, checking every shelf, every corner. Nothing. I asked my coworker Rosa, who worked the day shift, if she'd seen it. She shook her head, looking at me like I was losing it. "You sure you didn't dream it, Mia?" "Night shifts mess with your head." But I hadn't dreamed it. I found the doll later that night, sitting upright on the counter, its stitched face turned toward me. My breath caught, my hands shaking as I grabbed it and shoved it back in the bag. I tied the bag shut with a zip tie and locked it in the manager's office, where no one but me had a key. I didn't sleep that day, my mind racing with questions. How had it moved? Was someone messing with me? The diner's security camera was busted, so there was no way to check. By the third night, the whispers started. They were soft at first, barely audible over the hum of the fridge, but they grew clearer with every hour. "You shouldn't have taken me." The voice wasn't human. It was too sharp, too hollow, like it was coming from inside my skull. I checked the office and the bag was still there, zip tie intact. But the whispers followed me, weaving through the diner like smoke curling around my thoughts. I started seeing things, shadows in the corners, too tall, too thin, with eyes like the dolls, watching me from the edges of my vision. I called Carl, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried Rosa again, but she just told me to take a day off, said I looked pale, like I was coming down with something. I couldn't tell her the truth, that I was terrified, that the doll was doing something to me. My head felt foggy, my thoughts slipping like sand through my fingers. I'd read about the nocebo effect, how believing something's wrong can make it real. But this wasn't just in my head. The doll was real, and it was angry. On the fourth night, I found a newspaper clipping tucked under a booth, yellowed and brittle, dated 1972. It was about a missing girl, Lily, who'd last been seen near this diner. Her description mentioned a cloth doll she always carried, with black stitches and a crooked mouth. The article said the doll was never found, and neither was she. Scrawled in red ink across the clipping were the words, "Don't keep her." My stomach dropped. Had Carl found that doll? Had I brought it inside? I started researching online during my breaks, digging into local legends. I found a forum post about a Navajo curse tied to objects that hold grief. The post said some dolls, made with bad intent, could carry spirits, angry ones, tied to loss or betrayal. They'd latch onto anyone who took them, feeding on guilt, fear, or secrets. I thought about my own life, my fights with my sister, the time I lied to get my ex-usual response. Job, the money I stole from my mom to pay for her rehab. Was the doll feeding on that? Was it punishing me? That night, the doll was back on the counter, but its face had changed. The stitches were looser, the mouth wider, like it was smiling. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and cut it to pieces, the fabric tearing like flesh, the stuffing spilling out like dust. But the whispers didn't stop. They got louder, screaming, "You can't destroy me." I burned the pieces in a dumpster out back, the flames licking the night sky, but the smoke smelled wrong, like blood and bone. When I went back inside, the lights went out, plunging the diner into darkness. The emergency exit sign cast a red glow, and in it I saw her, a girl, maybe 10, standing in the middle of the diner. Her face was pale, her eyes black voids, her mouth a jagged slash. She looked just like the doll. I screamed and ran, locking myself in the office, but the door rattled like something was trying to get in. The whispers were everywhere now, chanting my name, my sins, my secret. I called the sheriff, but by the time he arrived, the girl was gone, and the doll's ashes were cold. He thought I was crazy, said I needed sleep. But I knew what I saw. The next night, I found another doll, identical to the first, sitting on my car's hood. I quit the diner that day, moved to a new town, but the whispers followed. I hear them in my apartment, in my dreams, in the static of my TV. Last night, I woke to find the doll on my pillow, its stitched eyes glowing in the dark. I don't know what's real anymore. Is it the curse? My mind breaking. Schizophrenia, paranoia, guilt. All I know is she's here, watching me, waiting. I see her in mirrors, in shadows, her face twisting into that awful smile. If you're listening, if you're out there working a late shift or driving a lonely road, hear me. Don't take what isn't yours. Don't disturb what's meant to stay lost. The universe has rules, and if you break them, it'll come for you, 100 times over, in ways that'll haunt you forever. I can hear her now, giggling in the walls, her voice in my blood. The door's shaking. I don't think I'll make it through the night. Be careful. The universe doesn't forgive. The endless night. Some stories don't just scare you, they trap you, looping in your mind until you can't tell where they end and you begin. My name is Casey, and I'm a long-haul trucker, spending my nights on desolate highways where the world feels like it's holding its breath. I've always been drawn to the quiet of the road, the way it stretches into the unknown. But a year ago, I found something out there that changed me. It's a weight I carry, a shadow that wakes me up gasping, my heart pounding like I'm still running from it. I met a man named Daniel Ward at a truck stop, his eyes wild with the truth he couldn't unsee. And what he told me about being stuck in a time loop, it's haunted me ever since. I can't keep this to myself anymore. I need you to feel the dread, the helplessness, the way the night seemed to know my name. So, settle in, turn off the lights, and let me take you to that endless stretch of road. This is my story, but it's also his. It was a humid July night in 2024, somewhere along a forgotten stretch of Route 66 in New Mexico. The road was a ribbon of black cutting through the desert, the stars above sharp as knives. My rig's headlights carved a path through the dark, the radio spitting static as I fought to stay awake. I'd been driving for hours, my eyes heavy, my thoughts drifting to the edge of nowhere. That's when I heard it, a voice, faint but clear, crackling through the static. "How do we get out?" it whispered, desperate, like it was speaking directly to me. The voice came again, repeating, "How do we get out?" before dissolving into a low hum, like a machine winding down. I shook it off, blaming fatigue, but my skin prickled, a chill settling in my bones. I pulled into a truck stop just before dawn, a dingy place with flickering neon and the smell of burnt coffee. The lot was nearly empty, just a few rigs parked like sleeping giants. Inside, a man sat alone in a booth, his face half hidden under a worn cap. His hands clutched a thermos, and his eyes, wild, bloodshot, locked onto mine the moment I walked in. His name was Daniel Ward, scrawled on a notebook he kept close. I don't know why I sat across from him. Maybe it was the way he seemed to expect me, like he'd been waiting. "You heard it, didn't you?" he said, his voice low, trembling. The loop. My heart skipped. I hadn't told him about the radio, but he knew. He slid a small, tarnished pocket watch across the table. Its face cracked, its hands frozen at midnight. "It's not just time," he whispered. "It's us. We're trapped." My stomach twisted, but I couldn't look away. His fear was a mirror, reflecting something I'd felt but couldn't name. Daniel told me he'd been stuck, reliving the same night over and over, always on this stretch of road. He said it started after he found the watch in an abandoned gas station, its ticking pulling him into a loop he couldn't escape. He talked about a curse, about needing to understand yourself to break free, his words echoing some ancient wisdom I didn't fully grasp. He was frantic, his hands shaking as he spoke of desires, attachments, and a life he couldn't let go of. I took the watch, promising to keep it safe, but its weight in my pocket felt wrong, like it was alive. That night, in my rig, I held it up to the light, and the hands twitched, just once, like a heartbeat. I felt it then, a pull, like the road was calling me deeper into its secrets. I kept driving, but the road felt different now, the darkness thicker, like it was watching me. The watch stayed in my pocket, its faint ticking a constant reminder of Daniel's words. I'd hear the radio static every night, always on that same stretch of Route 66, always at the same time. Sometimes it was just noise, but other times I'd catch fragments. "My name," whispered softly, or phrases like, "break the loop and you're still here." My mind spun, torn between dismissing it as exhaustion and fearing it was real. I'd always been alone on the road, content with my own company, but now I felt exposed, like the night knew my every thought. I saw Daniel again a week later, at another truck stop in Arizona. He looked worse, gaunt, his eyes hollow, like he was fading. "You kept it," he said, staring at the bulge in my pocket where the watch rested. "You feel it now, don't you? The loop." His voice was desperate, fleeting, and I nodded, unable to lie. He gave me a journal, its pages filled with frantic notes about the loop, about being trapped in the same night, the same choices. He wrote about his life, estranged siblings who called him selfish, a wife who left him, a daughter he barely knew. His words were laced with guilt, regret, and a longing to fix things he couldn't change. "You have to let go," he said. "Everything you love, everything you want, it's what keeps you here." I wanted to believe he was crazy, but his pain was too real, too close to my own. I'd always run from attachments, family, friends, anything that could hurt. But reading his journal felt like facing my own reflection. I started noticing anomalies. My rig's clock would reset to midnight, no matter how many times I fixed it. The same song played on the radio, a mournful tune I didn't recognize, looping endlessly. I'd see the same mile marker, 66.6, over and over, even when I knew I'd driven past it. My dreams were vivid, suffocating. In them, I was Daniel, standing in the desert, the watch ticking in my hand as the road stretched into infinity. I'd wake up gasping, my cab feeling smaller, the air heavier. I tried to call my brother, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, but the line was dead, static hissing through the receiver. My loneliness, once a comfort, was now a cage, and I felt the loop tightening around me. I went back to the abandoned gas station Daniel mentioned, a crumbling relic off the highway, its pumps rusted, its windows boarded up. The air inside was thick with dust and gasoline fumes, the floor littered with broken glass. In a back room I found it, a shrine of sorts with candles, photos, and a drawing of the watch, its hands pointing to midnight. A note in Daniel's handwriting read, "To break the loop, know yourself, let go." My hands shook as I pocketed the note, the watch ticking louder in my pocket like it was angry. I felt watched. Not just by the station, but by the road itself, its endless black expanse waiting to swallow me. The watch became my obsession. I couldn't leave it behind. It was always there in my pocket, my bag, my hand. The ticking grew louder, syncing with my heartbeat, and I'd hear it at night, even when I hid it in my rig storage. The radio static was constant now, weaving the mournful tune with whispers of my name, my fears, my regret. I started seeing things, shadows in my rearview mirror, a figure standing at the edge of the road, gone when I blinked. My dreams blurred with reality. In one I was driving, but the road was a loop, the same gas station appearing every few miles. In another, I was Daniel, begging someone to take the watch, my voice not my own. I'd wake up sweating, my hands clutching the wheel, the watch warm against my skin. I found more of Daniel's notes, hidden in my rig, under the seat, in the glove box, places I hadn't looked. They were frantic, scrawled in ink that looked fresh. "The loop is you. Your desires trap you. Let them go." He wrote about a curse, something tied to the watch, something that fed on attachment, love, guilt, fear. He mentioned his daughter, how he'd failed her, how he couldn't let go of the pain. His words cut deep, stirring memories I'd buried. My brother's anger, my mother's disappointment, the life I'd run from. I'd always thought solitude was freedom, but now it felt like a prison, the loop tightening with every mile. I tried to destroy the watch, smashing it with a wrench, but it wouldn't break. The metal was unyielding, the hands still ticking, faster now, like a countdown. The tune played louder, not just from the radio, but from the air itself, curling around my thoughts. I started hearing voices, Daniel's, my own, others I didn't recognize, urging me to let go. I resisted, clinging to the watch, to my rig, to the road, but the loop was relentless. One night, I stopped at a rest area, and the watch was gone from my pocket, only to reappear in the passenger seat, its hands spinning backward. The radio flared to life, playing my own voice. "How do we get out?" I screamed, smashing the dashboard, but the sound didn't stop. I was losing myself. My memories felt slippery, like they belonged to someone else. I'd see Daniel's face in my mirrors, his eyes pleading, accusing. I'd catch myself writing in his journal words I didn't remember. Casey will stay. My mind was a battleground, torn between who I was and who the loop wanted me to be. I tried to call my brother again, desperate for an anchor, but the static was all I got, whispering. I stopped taking jobs, too afraid to leave my rig. The road was my home, but now it was a trap, every mile looping back to that same stretch of Route 66. The watch was always there, ticking, glowing faintly in the dark. I'd see Daniel in my dreams, his face crumbling like sand, his voice begging me to break the loop. But how? I'd never known myself, not really, just a drifter running from everything that mattered. The static was in my head now, a constant buzz that drowned out my thought. I'd see figures on the road, my brother, my mother, people I'd hurt, standing in the headlights, vanishing when I swerved. The first twist came when I found a new note in my rig, written in my handwriting, but dated years ago, before I was born. It read, "The loop is older than you. It chooses who stays." My reality cracked. Was I trapped because I found the watch, or had the loop chosen me long before? Had Daniel been me or someone else, caught in the same cycle? The thought was a knife, cutting through my sense of self. I wasn't just trapped in time. I was trapped in something bigger, something that knew me better than I knew myself. The second twist was worse. I found Daniel's rig, abandoned at a rest stop, its door ajar, the air inside thick with the smell of decay. Inside was a shrine, candles, photos of me, my brother, my life, all arranged around the watch. A journal lay open, Daniel's handwriting now mine. I'm not Daniel, I'm the loop. I realized he hadn't escaped. He'd been consumed, his identity erased, and now the loop was rewriting me. The watch was on the seat, its hands spinning wildly, the tune roaring in my ears. I ran, but the road looped back, the gas station looming ahead, its lights flickering like a trap. The loop was everywhere. My mirror showed faces that weren't mine. Daniel's, my own but wrong, eyes empty. The radio played my life. Arguments with my brother, my mother's tears, moments I'd bury. I tried to smash the watch again, but it burned my hands, the symbols glowing like eyes. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. They were the loops, pulling me into its endless night. I don't know how I'm still here. One moment I was in my rig, the watch's tune drowning my thoughts, the road looping endlessly. The next, I was on the side of the highway, the asphalt cold under my hands, the desert silent. My rig was gone, the watch with it, like it had never existed. I flagged down a car, told the police everything, but they found nothing. No rig, no shrine, no trace of Daniel. They said I was dehydrated, delusional. Maybe they're right, but I hear the tune sometimes, faint, like a memory I can't shake. I see the road in my dreams, stretching forever, the watch ticking in my hand. I avoid highways, but the hum finds me in motels, in bars, in my own head. I don't know if I'm free or if I'm still driving that endless night, trapped in the loop story. Something's out there, something that knows my name, and I'm terrified it's still waiting for me to come back.
The house on Hollow Hill. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance for Emma and her family to leave the chaos of city life behind and embrace the quiet charm of small-town living. The house they chose sat atop a hill overlooking acres of dense woodland, its weathered exterior giving it an air of mystery that intrigued them more than it unsettled them. But what seemed like a dream quickly turned into a nightmare. From the moment they moved in, strange things began happening. At first, they were subtle enough to dismiss. Doors slamming shut on their own, faint whispers drifting through the halls at night, and the scent of lavender lingering in empty rooms despite no one using the fragrance. Emma chalked it up to old house quirks, but her husband Daniel wasn't so sure. It's probably just settling, she reassured him when he mentioned hearing footsteps above their bedroom late one evening. These old houses always make noise, but deep down she knew better. Something about the house felt wrong, like it had been waiting for them. Their first night in the house should have been peaceful, a celebration of new beginnings. Instead, it became the beginning of their terror. As Emma tucked their 6-year-old daughter Lily into bed, the girl clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, her wide eyes darting around the room. "Mommy, there's someone in my closet," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. Emma sighed, forcing a smile as she knelt beside the bed. "There's no one here, sweetheart. Just us. Now close your eyes and try to sleep." But as she turned off the light and closed the door behind her, she couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching her. When she glanced back at the doorway, she swore she saw a shadow flicker across the wall inside the room. Shaking her head, she told herself it was just her imagination and headed downstairs. That's when the screaming started. Lily's cries pierced through the house, sharp and panicked. Emma bolted upstairs, throwing open the door to find her daughter sitting upright in bed, tears streaming down her face. "He touched me," Lily sobbed, pointing toward the closet. "A man with cold hands." Heart pounding, Emma rushed to comfort her, scanning the room for any sign of an intruder. The closet door stood slightly ajar, revealing nothing but darkness within. Still, the chill in the air sent shivers racing down her spine. Over the next few days, the disturbances grew worse. Objects disappeared only to reappear in odd places. A spoon left on the dining table would later be found in the attic. A book placed neatly on a shelf would turn up tossed carelessly onto the floor. Then came the knocking. It started softly, almost hesitantly, coming from the basement door each night around midnight. Daniel tried ignoring it at first, assuming it was the wind or loose pipes rattling. But when the knocks grew louder and more insistent, he decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, he descended the creaky wooden stairs, his footsteps echoing ominously in the confined space. The beam of light revealed dusty shelves lined with jars of preserves, long past their expiration date, cobwebs clinging to the rafters like ghostly veils. And then, he saw it. Etched into the far wall in jagged letters were the words, "Leave while you still can." Before he could react, the temperature plummeted, frost forming on the walls as icy breath washed over him. Panic surged through him as he bolted back upstairs, slamming the door shut behind him. By morning, the message was gone, leaving only smooth, unmarked plaster in its place. As the days passed, Emma noticed changes in Lily, not just fear, but something deeper, darker. Her once vibrant personality faded into silence, replaced by vacant stares and muttered phrases in languages neither parent recognized. One evening, unable to endure the tension any longer, Emma followed her daughter into the bathroom, where Lily often spent hours staring at her reflection. "What do you see?" Emma asked gently, kneeling beside her. Lily didn't respond immediately. Then slowly, she pointed toward the mirror. "Her," she whispered. Confused, Emma glanced at the glass and froze. Standing behind Lily's reflection was a woman dressed in tattered Victorian-era clothing, her hollow eyes fixed directly on Emma. Before she could scream, the image vanished, leaving only their startled faces staring back at her. Summoning every ounce of courage she possessed, Emma searched the house for answers. In the attic, she discovered an old journal belonging to the previous owner, a woman named Margaret who had lived there decades earlier. Its pages detailed a tragic tale of loss and madness, culminating in Margaret's suicide after claiming the house was haunted by her deceased husband. Determined to end the nightmare, Emma and Daniel contacted a local historian, hoping to uncover more about the house's dark past. What they learned chilled them to the bone. Margaret's husband hadn't died naturally. He had been murdered, his body hidden somewhere within the property. His spirit, according to legend, remained trapped between worlds, seeking vengeance against anyone who dared disturb his resting place. That night, the house came alive with activity. Doors slammed violently, lights flickered uncontrollably, and the scent of lavender grew overpowering. Desperate to escape, the family gathered their belongings and fled into the storm raging outside. But as they drove away, glancing back at the house one last time, they saw him, the silhouette of a man standing in the upstairs window, watching them leave. Though they never returned, the memory of the house lingered, haunting their dreams and coloring their waking hours with paranoia. Because deep down, they knew, one wrong decision, one careless moment, and everything could change in an instant. You want to know what happened to the family afterward? Let's read. Months had passed since the night Emma and her family fled the house on Hollow Hill, but the memories clung to them like shadows they couldn't shake. They rented a small apartment in the city, far from the dense woods and creaky floors of their former home. Yet no matter how many miles separated them from that place, its presence lingered, in Lily's sleepless nights, in Daniel's restless pacing, and in Emma's recurring dreams of cold hands brushing against her skin. At first, they tried to convince themselves it was over. The house was behind them. They were safe now. But safety felt fragile, an illusion easily shattered by the faintest sound or flicker of light. And then, one evening, the signs began again. It started with the lavender scent, a ghostly reminder of the house's oppressive atmosphere. Emma noticed it first while cooking dinner, the sweet aroma wafting through the kitchen, despite no candles being lit. She froze mid-stir, her heart pounding as she scanned the room for any logical explanation. When no one came, she dismissed it as stress or fatigue. After all, it wasn't unusual for the mind to play tricks after such a harrowing experience. But when Lily woke up screaming 2 nights later, clutching her stuffed rabbit and muttering about the lady in the mirror, Emma knew they weren't imagining things. The figure from the bathroom mirror, the spectral woman in tattered Victorian clothing, had followed them. Desperate for answers, Emma revisited Margaret's journal, poring over its pages until the words blurred before her eyes. One passage stood out more than the others. He is bound to this world not by choice, but by my failure to free him. Until his body is found and laid to rest, neither he nor I will find peace. Her stomach churned as realization dawned. The spirit haunting them wasn't just Margaret, it was her husband, too. His rage and despair had tethered him to the living, and somehow, their escape hadn't severed that connection. Whatever bond existed between the house and its victims extended beyond physical proximity. Determined to break the cycle, Emma reached out to Dr. Evelyn Carter, a local historian specializing in paranormal folklore. Though skeptical at first, Evelyn agreed to meet with Emma after hearing about the family's ordeal. Over coffee, Emma recounted everything. The whispers, the apparitions, the inexplicable events both inside and outside the house. Evelyn listened intently, nodding occasionally as if piecing together fragments of a puzzle. When Emma finished, the historian leaned forward, her expression grave. There are stories, Evelyn began slowly, choosing her words carefully, of spirits who attach themselves not to places but to people. If your family disturbed something during your time there, perhaps unknowingly triggered a ritual or unearthed a hidden artifact, you may have carried part of the haunting with you. Emma's blood ran cold. She thought back to the attic, where she'd discovered the journal. Had she touched something else? Moved an object that should have remained untouched? Before leaving, Evelyn handed her a business card. If you're serious about ending this, we need to return to the house. Closure might require confronting what you left behind. Reluctantly, Emma convinced Daniel to accompany her back to the house. Lily stayed with a trusted neighbor, blissfully unaware of their mission. As they approached the hilltop property, the air grew heavier, pressing down on them like a storm cloud refusing to break. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark and uninviting, yet strangely familiar. Inside, little had changed. Dust covered every surface, and the scent of lavender hung thick in the air. Armed with flashlights and courage they didn't truly feel, they descended into the basement once more. This time the message on the wall glowed faintly, as though illuminated by some unseen force. Find me. Following Evelyn's advice, they searched methodically, prying up floorboards and tapping on walls in search of hollow spaces. Hours passed before Daniel's crowbar struck something solid beneath the dirt. Together, they unearthed a shallow grave containing the skeletal remains of a man dressed in decaying formal wear. As they stared at the discovery, the temperature plummeted. Frost crept across the walls, and a low, guttural growl reverberated through the space. Shadows swirled violently, coalescing into the shape of a man whose face twisted with anguish and fury. For a moment, Emma feared they'd awakened something unstoppable. Then, unexpectedly, the figure softened. Its anguished expression gave way to relief, and with a final mournful sigh, it dissolved into nothingness. When they returned home, the oppressive weight lifted almost immediately. The lavender scent vanished, replaced by the comforting aroma of fresh laundry and brewed coffee. Lily slept peacefully for the first time in months, her laughter filling the apartment once more. Even Daniel seemed lighter, his usual stoic demeanor giving way to moments of genuine joy. Yet Emma couldn't fully let go. She often found herself staring out the window, half expecting to see the silhouette of the house on the hill reflected in the glass. Sometimes late at night, she swore she heard faint whispers, Margaret's voice, perhaps thanking her for setting things right. Though life moved forward, the memory of Hollow Hill remained etched into their souls. Because deep down they knew, one wrong decision, one careless moment, and everything could change in an instant. The house on Hollow Hill. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance for Emma and her family to leave the chaos of city life behind and embrace the quiet charm of small-town living. The house they chose sat atop a hill overlooking acres of dense woodland, its weathered exterior giving it an air of mystery that intrigued them more than it unsettled them. But what seemed like a dream quickly turned into a nightmare. From the moment they moved in, strange things began happening. At first, they were subtle enough to dismiss. Doors slamming shut on their own, faint whispers drifting through the halls at night, and the scent of lavender lingering in empty rooms despite no one using the fragrance. Emma chalked it up to old house quirks, but her husband Daniel wasn't so sure. "It's probably just settling," she reassured him when he mentioned hearing footsteps above their bedroom late one evening. These old houses always make noise, but deep down she knew better. Something about the house felt wrong, like it had been waiting for them. Their first night in the house should have been peaceful, a celebration of new beginnings. Instead, it became the beginning of their terror. As Emma tucked their 6-year-old daughter Lily into bed, the girl clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, her wide eyes darting around the room. "Mommy, there's someone in my closet," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. Emma sighed, forcing a smile as she knelt beside the bed. "There's no one here, sweetheart. Just us. Now close your eyes and try to sleep." But as she turned off the light and closed the door behind her, she couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching her. The mirror's truth. Some stories don't just scare you, they strip you bare, forcing you to face parts of yourself you'd rather keep hidden. My name is Alex, and I work the night shift at a grocery store in Portland, Oregon, a place where the fluorescent lights hum like secrets and the aisles feel too quiet after midnight. I've always been drawn to the strange, the moments when reality feels like it's slipping, like the world's showing you something it shouldn't. A year ago, I met someone who changed how I see everything. Maya Chen, a grad student who came into the store one night, her eyes haunted, clutching a journal like it was her only anchor. She told me about a mirror, an antique from her family that showed truths too dark to bear. Her story broke me, left me shaking, questioning my own reflection. I'm telling you this because I need you to feel it. The fear, the doubt, the way the truth can be a curse. So, dim the lights, listen close, and let me take you back to that night. This is my story, but it's also hers. It was a cold October night in 2024, the kind where the Portland rain taps against the grocery store windows, like it's trying to get in. I was restocking canned goods in aisle 7, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting shadows that never seemed to stay still. The store was dead, just the hum of the coolers and the occasional creak of the building settling. I'd been working the night shift for months, used to the eerie quiet, but that night felt different, heavier, like the air was holding its breath. Around 2 a.m., the bell above the door chimed, and in walked a woman, maybe mid-20s, her face pale, her eyes wide and darting. She carried a leather journal, clutching it so tightly her knuckles were white. Her name was Maya Chen, I saw it written on the journal's cover when she set it on the counter to buy a pack of gum. "You, okay?" I asked, scanning her item. Her hands were shaking, and she kept glancing at the security mirrors above the registers, like she was afraid of what they'd show. "You look like you've seen a ghost." She laughed, but it was brittle, like glass about to shatter. "Not a ghost," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something worse." My skin prickled. I don't know why, but I leaned closer, like her words were pulling me in. She told me about a mirror, an antique from her grandmother's house in Tennessee, left to her after the old woman died under strange circumstances. Scratches on her body, found in front of the mirror, no sign of anyone else. Maya said it showed things, truths about people, things they hid even from themselves. "It's not just a reflection," she whispered, her eyes locking onto mine. "It knows you." I felt a chill, like the store's AC had kicked into overdrive. I offered her a coffee from the break room, and she started talking, her words spilling out like she'd been holding them in too long. I listened, my heart pounding, unable to shake the feeling that her story was about to become mine. That night after Maya left, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way her voice trembled, the way she avoided her own reflection in the store's mirrors. I started noticing the security mirrors more, their convex surfaces catching glimpses of me that felt off. My reflection seemed to lag, just a fraction, like it was watching me before moving. I told myself it was the late hour, the dim lighting, but my stomach twisted with unease. I took home a Polaroid camera from the store's clearance bin, thinking I'd snap a picture of myself to prove it was all in my head. When I developed the photo, my reflection in the background mirror was smiling, a cold, knowing smile I hadn't made. My hands shook as I stuffed the photo in my pocket, the weight of it heavier than it should have been. I saw Maya again a week later, back at the store, looking worse, her eyes sunken, her hair tangled, like she hadn't slept. She bought another pack of gum, but this time she lingered, her fingers tracing the edge of her journal. "It's getting worse," she said, her voice low, like she was afraid the mirrors were listening. "The mirror, it shows me things about people. My roommate, my boyfriend, my professor. They're not who I thought." She told me about Sarah, her roommate, who'd been slipping sedatives into her tea, keeping her docile. About Jake, her boyfriend, who'd hidden a GPS tracker in her purse, planning to lock her away in a cabin. About Dr. Martinez, her advisor, haunted by a student's suicide he'd covered up. My chest tightened, a mix of fear and fascination. "But the worst part," she said, her voice breaking, "is what it's showing me about myself." I wanted to tell her to get rid of the mirror, to run, but something stopped me. Her fear was contagious, seeping into me, making me question my own life. My estranged sister, who I hadn't called in years. My coworker, Tom, who always seemed too friendly. Even my own reasons for working this dead-end job. Was I hiding something too? Maya left me her journal, saying she couldn't keep it anymore, that it was too heavy. I read it that night in the break room, the store's silence pressing in. Her grandmother's words filled the pages, warning about the mirror's curse, how it revealed hidden motives, feeding on them to grow stronger. She wrote about her family's history, women driven mad by the mirror, their lives unraveling as it exposed their darkest impulses. My hands trembled as I read, the Polaroid in my pocket feeling like a burning coal. The store felt different after that. The mirrors above the aisles seemed to watch me, their reflections showing glimpses of things that shouldn't be there, a shadow behind me, a flicker of someone else's face. I started avoiding them, keeping my eyes on the floor, but the dread followed me. At home, my bathroom mirror showed the same lag, my reflection moving just a beat too slow. One night, I caught it smiling while I brushed my teeth, a cruel, unfamiliar grin. I covered every mirror in my apartment with sheets of paper, but I could still feel them, like eyes on my back. My dreams were worse, vivid, suffocating. In them I was Maya, standing in her grandmother's house, the mirror showing me my own face, but twisted, hungry, whispering truths I didn't want to hear. I'd wake up gasping, my heart racing, the Polaroid on my nightstand showing that same wrong smile. I tried to find Maya, but she'd stopped coming to the store. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and her apartment was dark when I drove by. Her journal was all I had, and it was changing, new entries appearing in handwriting that weren't hers, describing my shifts, my thoughts, my life. Alex is scared, one read, but he's curious too. He wants to know. My mind spun, torn between fear and sickness. I need to understand. Was the mirror doing this, or was I losing it? I'd always been a loner, content with the quiet, but now it felt like a trap, the silence amplifying my doubts. The journal became my obsession. I'd read it during breaks, the words pulling me deeper into Maya's world. It described the mirror's history, crafted by her great-great-grandmother, Evangeline, during the Civil War, a tool to reveal truth but cursed to feed on it, growing stronger with every dark secret it exposed. The entries mentioned a ritual, a blood pact that bound the mirror to their family, and a warning. The mirror doesn't just show you, it changes you. I started noticing changes in myself. I'd snap at Tom for no reason, my patience gone. I'd hear my sister's voice in my dreams, accusing me of abandoning her, and wake up crying, guilt I'd buried years ago clawing its way out. The mirrors in the store were worse, showing me not just my reflection but others. Tom, stealing from the register, my sister, plotting against me. Even Maya, her eyes empty, her hands covered in blood. One night, I found a small mirror in the store's stockroom, tucked behind a crate of expired cereal. It was old, its frame carved with symbols that hurt to look at, just like Maya described. My reflection in it was wrong, my eyes too dark, my mouth twisted in a smirk. I smashed it with a box cutter, but the shards reassembled overnight, the mirror whole again waiting on the shelf. The store's security mirrors started showing scenes from my life, my childhood fights with my sister, my dad's funeral, moments I'd never shared. My reflection spoke sometimes, its voice in my head. You're just like them, Alex. Hiding. Pretending. I tried to quit, but my manager laughed it off, saying I was too reliable. The mirrors were everywhere now, reflecting the truth I couldn't escape. I found Maya's address in her journal and went to her apartment, desperate for answers. The door was ajar, the air inside thick with the smell of herbs and decay. The antique mirror stood in her living room, uncovered, its surface like black water. Notes were scattered on the floor, some in Maya's handwriting, others in mine, words I didn't remember writing. The mirror sees you, Alex. It knows what you've done. My reflection in the mirror was holding the Polaroid, but I wasn't. It waved slow and deliberate, and I felt my body move to match it, like a puppet. I ran, but the journal was in my bag when I got home, its pages now filled with my secrets, how I'd lied to my sister about our dad's will, how I'd kept this job to avoid facing my failures. The mirror was rewriting me, and I didn't know how to stop it. I stopped sleeping, too afraid to close my eyes. The store was a prison, the mirrors watching every move. My reflection was always there, mocking me, showing me truths I couldn't deny. I saw myself stealing from my sister's savings as a teen, telling myself it was a loan. I saw my resentment towards Tom, how I'd wished he'd get fired, how I'd planted doubts about him with our boss. The worst was seeing my own motives for helping Maya, not kindness, but curiosity, a need to feel important, to be the hero. My reflection laughed, its voice sharp. You're no better, Alex. You're just hiding it. The mirror showed others too, customers with cruel intentions, co-workers with hidden grudges. The store felt alive, the lights flickering, the air cold and heavy, like the mirror's influence was seeping into the walls. The first twist came when I found a new Polaroid in my pocket, one I hadn't taken. It showed me in the store, but the background was wrong, shelves stocked with items that didn't exist, labels in a language I couldn't read. My reflection was holding a knife, blood on my hands. I burned the photo, but it was back in my pocket the next day, unburned, my reflection's smile wider. The journal now described a future, my future, where I used the mirror's truths to manipulate others, becoming a predator like the ones it showed me. I was losing myself, my thoughts blending with the mirror's whispers, urging me to embrace what I saw. The second twist was worse. I found Maya's journal in the stockroom, open to a page I hadn't seen. Alex is part of it now. The mirror chose him. I realized Maya hadn't come to me by chance. She'd been drawn to the store. To me because the mirror knew I'd listen, that I'd take the journal, that I'd become its next keeper. I saw her in the security mirrors, her face pale, her eyes black voids, mouthing, "I'm sorry." She wasn't missing. She was gone, consumed by the mirror, her soul trapped in its glass. And now it wanted me. The store's mirrors showed my life unraveling. My sister disowning me, Tom dead in an alley, my own hands stained with guilt. I tried to smash the antique mirror, but it wouldn't break, its surface rippling. My reflection stepping closer, reaching out. I don't know how I'm still here. One moment, I was in the stockroom, the mirror's whispers drowning my thoughts, my reflection's hands around my throat. The next, I was outside the store, the pavement cold under my hands, the night silent. The journal was gone, the Polaroids too, like they'd never existed. I quit my job, moved to a new apartment with no mirrors, but the police found nothing. No Maya, no antique mirror, just an empty stockroom. They said I was stressed, maybe imagining things. Maybe they're right. But I see my reflection sometimes, in windows, in puddles, always with that same cruel smile. I hear whispers at night, truths I can't unhear, about my sister, my past, myself. I avoid reflective surfaces, but the mirror's in my head now, showing me who I am, who I could become. I don't know if I escaped or if I'm still trapped, my life a reflection in its glass. Something's out there, something that knows my secrets. And I'm terrified it's still watching, waiting for me to look back. The signal in the static. Disclaimer. This horror story is a work of fiction inspired by real-life themes. All characters and events are fictionalized. Some stories don't just scare you. They crawl inside your mind and stay there, whispering long after the lights are out. My name is Riley, and I'm a long-haul trucker, spending endless nights on lonely highways. The hum of my rig, the only thing keeping me grounded. I've always been drawn to the strange, the unexplained. Those moments when the world feels like it's tilting, showing you something you weren't meant to see. A year ago, I stumbled across a story that broke me. A secret hidden in plain sight that still wakes me up, gasping. My heart racing like I'm running from something I can't name. It started with a radio signal, a faint voice crackling through the static on a deserted stretch of road, leading me to a man named Ethan Cole. He was obsessed with a cartoon, one you've probably heard of, one that seems to know the future before it happens. I met him at a truck stop, and what he showed me changed everything. I'm telling you this because I need you to feel it. The dread, the helplessness, the way the world feels wrong now. So, turn down the noise, listen close, and let me take you back to that night. This is my story, but it's also his. I was driving through the Midwest, somewhere along I-80, the kind of stretch where the road seems to go on forever, swallowed by darkness and the endless hum of tires on asphalt. It was July 2024, a muggy night. The air was heavy with the threat of a storm. My radio was on, spitting static as it struggled to pick up a signal. I'd been driving for hours, my eyes burning, my mind drifting to the edge of sleep. That's when I heard it, a voice, faint but clear, cutting through the white noise. "They know what's coming," it said, low and urgent, like a warning meant for me. I froze, my hands tightening on the wheel. The voice came again, repeating the same phrase, then dissolved into static. I fiddled with the dial, but it was gone, leaving only a chill that didn't belong in the summer heat. I pulled into a truck stop outside Des Moines, the neon sign flickering like a dying star. Inside, the place was nearly empty, just a waitress wiping down counters, and a man sitting alone in a corner booth. He was thin, his face shadowed under a baseball cap, his fingers twitching around a coffee mug. His name was Ethan Cole. I saw it on a notebook he clutched like a lifeline. I don't know why I sat down across from him. Maybe it was the way his eyes darted, like he was running from something. "You hear it too, don't you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. My skin prickled. I hadn't told him about the radio, But he knew. He slid the notebook toward me, its pages filled with frantic scribbles about a cartoon called The Kin. You know it. The show that's predicted everything from political scandals to pandemics, years before they happened. Ethan's eyes burned with a mix of fear and obsession. It's not just a show, he said. It's a signal. He showed me a flash drive, said it held proof. Clips from The Kin that predicted things not yet reported, things tied to 2025. My gut told me to walk away, but his desperation was a hook, pulling me in. I took the drive, promising to watch it later, but the weight of it in my pocket felt wrong, like carrying a cursed object. That night, in my rigged sleeper cab, I plugged it into my laptop. The clips were grainy, some from episodes I recognized, others from what looked like unaired cuts. One showed a factory run by robots, humans replaced, their faces blank with despair. Another depicted a city plunged into darkness, a blackout that left people screaming. There was a scene of a girl using a device to translate languages instantly, and another of a flooded town, houses swallowed by rising waters. Each clip felt like a punch, the images too close to headlines I'd seen, too close to the world I lived in. My heart raced, a cold sweat breaking out. How did a cartoon know this? And why did Ethan think I needed to see it? I couldn't shake Ethan's words. It's a signal, he'd said, like the show was broadcasting something meant to be heard only by a few. I kept driving, but the road felt different now, the darkness heavier, like it was watching me. I started noticing things, static on my radio at the same time every night, always on that same stretch of I-80. Sometimes it was just noise, but other times I'd hear fragments of voices, words like robots or crisis that matched the clips Ethan gave me. My mind spun, torn between dismissing it as coincidence and fearing it was something more. I'd always been a skeptic, but doubt was creeping in, a slow poison that made me question everything. I tracked Ethan down a week later at another truck stop, this one in Nebraska. He looked worse, gaunt, his eyes sunken, his hands shaking as he clutched a new notebook. "Did you watch it?" he asked, his voice cracking. I nodded, and he leaned closer, his breath sour with coffee and fear. "There's more. There's a tape, a lost episode. It's in the old depot off Route 34. He scribbled an address, his pen digging into the paper like he was carving a warning. I should have refused, but the pull was too strong, like the road itself was leading me there. The depot was an abandoned husk, its windows shattered, its walls tagged with faded graffiti. Inside, the air was thick with dust and mildew, the floor littered with broken glass. I found the tape in a rusted locker, a VHS labeled The Kin, unreleased. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the plastic cold and heavy, like it didn't want to be touched. Back in my rig, I borrowed a portable VCR from a fellow trucker. The tape played, but the picture was warped, the colors bleeding into each other. The episode was wrong, darker than the show's usual tone. It followed a character named Emma, a young girl who found a strange radio in her family's attic. When she turned it on, it played a melody, soft and haunting, that seemed to seep into the air. The screen flickered, showing glimpses of the future, factories run by machines, cities blacked out, oceans rising. The characters acted like they knew they were being watched, their eyes locking onto the camera, onto me. My chest tightened, my breath shallow. The final scene showed Emma hiding the radio in a depot. The depot, the one I had just left. She whispered, "Don't listen to the signal." The screen went black, but the melody lingered, looping in my head. I couldn't sleep that night. The melody was everywhere, humming through the walls of my cab, my thoughts, my dreams. I saw Emma's face, her eyes pleading, accusing. I started doubting my own mind. Was I imagining this? Or was the show planting these fears? Ethan's notebook was worse. His notes were a descent into madness, pages filled with theories about the Kin being a conduit for something ancient, something that used the show to shape reality. He wrote about a curse tied to the radio, about voices that spoke through it, predicting disasters, wars, the end of the world. He mentioned his family, estranged siblings who called him crazy, friends who'd abandoned him. His loneliness bled through every word. mirroring my own. I'd always felt like an outsider, drifting from one highway to another, never quite belonging. Reading his notes was like looking into a fractured mirror, and it terrified me. The tape changed everything. I kept driving, but the road felt alive, the static on my radio growing louder, more insistent. I'd hear the melody now, woven into the noise, and sometimes my own name, whispered like a secret. I started seeing things, shadows in my rearview mirror, faces in the fog that vanished when I blinked. My dreams were vivid, blending with reality. In one I was Emma, holding the radio as the depot's walls closed in. In another, I was Ethan, running from something I couldn't see, the melody chasing me. I'd wake up gasping, my cab feeling smaller, the air heavier. I tried to find Ethan again, but he'd vanished. No trace at the truck stops, no answers from the numbers in his notebook. His absence was a void, a warning I couldn't ignore. I went back to the depot, driven by a need I couldn't explain. The place was darker now, the air thick with a metallic tang. In the same locker I found the radio from the episode, its dial glowing faintly under my flashlight. It was real, solid, its surface etched with strange symbols that made my eyes ache. I turned it on, and the melody played, curling around my thoughts like smoke. The depot seemed to shift, the walls humming, the shadows moving. I turned it off, but the melody stayed, burrowing into my mind. I took the radio with me, telling myself I'd destroy it, but it felt like it was part of me now, like letting it go would mean losing myself. The tape was worse. I watched it again, and it was different. New scenes, new predictions. One showed a city underwater, people screaming as waves swallowed them. Another showed a world without cash, only digital screens, faces blank with despair. The characters spoke to me now, their voices clear. "You can't stop it, Riley," Emma said, her eyes black voids. The screen flickered, showing my rig, my face, my hands on the wheel. I yanked the VCRS plug, but the screen stayed on, the melody blaring. I smashed the tape, but the pieces were back in my bag the next day, whole and untouched. My mind was fraying. I'd catch myself humming the melody, my thoughts foggy, like I was losing pieces of myself. I started writing notes like Ethan, trying to make sense of it. "The signal knows me," I wrote, my hand shaking. I'd find those words crossed out, replaced with "Riley will stay," in handwriting that wasn't mine. I stopped trusting my memories. Was I Riley, or was I becoming Ethan? The radio was always there, even when I hid it in my cab storage, reappearing on the passenger seat, its dial glowing. I'd hear it at night, playing on its own, whispering my name. I stopped taking jobs, too afraid to leave my rig. The road was my home, but now it felt like a trap, every mile pulling me closer to something I couldn't escape. I'd see Ethan in my dreams, his face skeletal, his voice begging me to destroy the radio. But I couldn't. It was too heavy, too real, like it was holding me together. The static was constant now, not just on the radio but in my head, a buzzing that drowned out my thoughts. I'd see the characters from the kin in my mirrors, their faces warped, their eyes watching. I'd blink, and they'd be gone, but the fear stayed, a weight in my chest. The first twist came when I found a new tape in my rig's glove box. No label, no explanation. It was another kin episode, but this one was set in my truck, the camera panning over my dashboard, my bunk, my life. Emma held the radio, singing my name, while the family laughed, their voices distorted. The final scene showed me driving, the road stretching into darkness, the radio glowing beside me. The screen went black, but I heard my own voice screaming, trapped in the static. I threw the tape out the window, but it was back in my cab the next morning, playing on its own. The second twist was worse. I found Ethan's rig, abandoned at a rest stop off Route 34. Inside was a shrine, candles, drawings of the radio, and a photo of Ethan, his eyes scratched out. A journal lay beside it, his handwriting barely legible. "I'm not Ethan anymore. I'm the signal." I realized he hadn't vanished. He'd been erased, his identity consumed by whatever lived in the show. And now it wanted me. The rig felt alive, the radio humming on the seat, its dial turning on its own. I ran, but the melody followed, seeping through the air. My skin, my thoughts. The show was everywhere. My radio played clips of the kin that didn't exist. Scenes of my childhood, my fights with my brother, moments I'd buried. The characters spoke in my voice, their eyes locked on me. I tried to smash the radio, but it wouldn't break, the symbols glowing brighter. My mirrors showed faces that weren't mine. Ethan's, Emma's, my own but wrong, twisted. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. They were the show's, rewriting me, pulling me into its world. I don't know how I'm still here. One moment, I was in my rig, the radio's melody drowning my thoughts, the screen showing my own face screaming. The next, I was on the side of the highway, the asphalt cold under my hands, the night silent. My rig was gone, the radio and tapes with it, like they'd never existed. I flagged down a car, told the police everything, but they found nothing. No rig, no depot shrine, no trace of Ethan. They said I was exhausted, maybe delusional. Maybe they're right. But I hear the melody sometimes, faint, like a ghost in the static. I see the kin in my dreams, their faces shifting, their voices calling my name. I avoid radios, but the hum finds me in motel rooms, in diners, in my own head. I don't know if the show was cursed, or if I am, or if I'm still driving that endless road, trapped in its story. I left trucking, left the highways, but the fear follows me. Something's out there, something that knows my name. And I'm terrified it's still broadcasting my future,